Dad cheated while Mom was dying. Say a few words, son, he said at his wedding toast. I did, and burned his fairy tale to the ground. He called me a disgrace, so I raised my glass and told the truth. By the time I finished, his best man dropped his drink, and the bride screamed. The mess began at that moment. My father labeled me a shame for failing to toast his new bride during the wedding. I got up, held out my glass, and stated, "Here's to the woman who was sleeping with my dad while Mom was dying." His best man's champagne fell to the floor. His bride let out a shriek. The priest left after what transpired. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of an expensive live band playing a gentle love tune filled the ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel in downtown Chicago. Everything about the scene was tastefully done: golden candlesticks, white floral centerpieces, and cleanly folded linen napkins next to plates that likely cost more than my rent. This wedding screamed money in every way. It was ostentatious, absurd, and, to be honest, offensive. My dish was practically untouched, and my whiskey glass was half empty when I sat at a round table close to the front. Stephanie, my sister, sat next to me, picking nervously at the navy blue dress cloth. Quietly, "You okay?" she inquired. I let out a breath through my nose. Peachy. The man of the hour, our father Richard Holloway, was standing close to the dance floor, grinning as if he hadn't set our family on fire, and her eyes shot to him. He wrapped his hand firmly around the waist of his new bride, Veronica, who had been his wife for a long time before my mother died. I gripped my glass more tightly. This isn't where I should be. I didn't plan on attending. I had thrown the thick, gorgeous, gold-embossed cardboard invitation straight into the garbage when it came. I made no hesitation at all. Then I got a call from Stephanie. "Alex, please," she had pleaded in a broken voice over the phone. "I know you hate him. I do too. But I can't do this alone." I squeezed the bridge of my nose and sighed. "You really want to sit through Dad marrying her?" "No," she said. "But if I have to suffer through it, I want you there with me." Suddenly, I found myself sitting in a rigid chair at an unnecessary wedding on a plane headed back to Chicago, watching my father play happily ever after with the woman who had contributed to the dissolution of my family. The worst thing? The visitors were enjoying it immensely. Richard was a man of respect to them. A well-known attorney. A loving father. A widower in mourning who had fallen in love once more. Bullshit. The truth was unknown to them. They were unaware that my father was surreptitiously moving with Veronica behind her back while my mother, Martha Holloway, was dying of ovarian cancer and was hardly able to raise her head off a pillow. And here we are now. Stephanie said next to me, "Are you drinking that or just staring at it?" My fingers were still wrapped around my whiskey glass when I blinked. Allowing the burn to settle in my throat, I took a slow drink. "Both," I said sourly. She gave a low chuckle, but her face was still strained. "I don't know how you're keeping it together right now." "Who says I am?" Throughout the night, I could sense my father's eyes straying in my direction. He didn't want me here, and I knew it. He was trying to paint the ideal picture, but I wasn't in it. However, Stephanie had persisted, and he had reluctantly invited me, presumably thinking I would say no. He ought to have been extremely fortunate. I was about to order another drink when my father did something that would end his life. His glass clicked. There was silence throughout the ballroom. With that endearing, well-practiced smile that he always wore in courtrooms and country clubs, Richard cleared his throat. "First off, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he said. "This is a special day, not just for me, but for Veronica. We are so blessed to have such incredible family and friends to celebrate this new chapter in our lives." There was polite applause. I tightened my jaw. Like the last chapter, my mother's life, the new one was a book he was eager to close. "Of course," he said, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge my children, Stephanie and Alex." My stomach turned over. They've been through a lot this past year, and I know how difficult transitions can be. But Stephanie, sweetheart, you've been such a strong, beautiful soul through it all. I couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become. Stephanie gritted her teeth and smiled. My father then turned to face me. "And Alex," he put forth. I gave him a blank stare in return. He went on, his voice calm and practiced. "I know we've had our differences, but family is family. And in the spirit of unity, I'd love for you to say a few words." My body froze. There was silence in the room. Stephanie seemed as shocked as I did when I looked at her. My dad gave me a hopeful smile. "Come on, son. Don't be a disgrace." The remarks were like a kick to the stomach. Suddenly, I lost my temper. I gently got up and picked up my glass. The room waited and watched me. I inhaled deeply and then, Here's to the woman who was sleeping with my dad while my mom was dying. The impact was immediate. The throng echoed with a piercing gasp. The sound of a fork hitting a plate was heard. Peter, my father's best man, dropped his champagne glass to the ground after fumbling with it. Veronica's flawless smile vanished as her face lost all of its color. Then the mayhem started. Veronica screamed, "What the, Alex?" Her voice pierced the quiet like a dagger. The room echoed with a whisper. Did he just say? Oh my God. Richard's face grew serious. Sit down. I remained motionless. No. Anger flashed in his eyes. You have no idea what you're talking about. Really? I asked with a sour laugh. Because I remember Mom crying herself to sleep when you'd work late. I remember the whispers. The hotel receipts? The perfume on your shirts that weren't hers? I remember everything. Veronica clenched her hands into fists. You're lying. Am I? I retorted. Because last time I checked, mistresses don't typically get wedding rings. Beside me, Stephanie choked back a sob. My father said, "Enough," in a loud voice. You will not ruin this night. I sneered. Ruin it? Dad, you ruined it, you ruined us. And you don't even care. The tense atmosphere in the room was oppressive. The priest then got to his feet, took off his glasses, and let out a sigh. He whispered, "You know what, I'm done." The priest left the wedding after saying that. The murmurs became full-fledged discussions. Seething, Richard turned to face me. Get out. I carefully placed my glass on the table. Gladly. My father's ideal wedding was in ruins when I left the reception without turning around. My heart was racing in my ears as I left the ballroom. Decorative mirrors and pricey floral arrangements lined the dimly lit big hallway outside the reception, reflecting the face of a man who had finally spoken his truth. I had to breathe. I pushed open the massive doors to the outdoor terrace with trembling hands. The crisp, chilling Chicago night seemed like a slap across my warm skin. Leaning on the stone railing and holding on to the edge with my fingers until my knuckles became white, I inhaled deeply. In sharp contrast to the pandemonium I had left behind, everything seemed peaceful out here. I had burned my father's entire wedding to the ground after he declared me a shame. I let out a breath that was audible in the chilly night air. Was it expected of me to feel bad? Feeling relieved? Furious? I made my home somewhere in the middle. Alex. The sound of my sister's voice caused me to turn. Stephanie had come onto the patio after me, her shoes clicking on the stone. Her eyes were still hazy from tears, and her cheeks was heated. I said, "You okay?" in a hushed voice. She laughed unsteadily. With a loud exhale, she ran a hand through her dark curls and asked, "Am I okay?" I should be asking you that. I wiped a palm across my face and turned my head away. I don't know, Stephanie. I couldn't let him get away with it. Softly. You didn't, she said. Believe me, you didn't. I gave her a quick look. Was I out of line? She gave a snort. Out of line? Alex, you just nuked Dad's wedding. I think out of line is a bit of an understatement. I exhaled sharply. Yeah. She folded her arms across her chest and leaned against the railing next to me. She tilted her head and said, I probably wouldn't have done it that way, but I don't blame you. Not even a little. With the distant city lights flashing, silence descended between us. After some time, Stephanie whispered, Mom would have wanted this, wouldn't she? The lump in my throat was swallowed. Yeah, I muttered. I think she would have. She blinked quickly as she nodded. I grabbed her hand and gave it a light squeeze. I inquired, Are they still in there? She drew another trembling breath. She glanced at me and said, Oh yeah. The guests are still whispering, Dad's trying to do damage control, but it's bad. Veronica looked like she was going to combust, and the priest actually left, like, straight up walking out. A dry laugh slipped out of my mouth. Good. Stephanie grinned. Honestly? Yeah. Suddenly, the door behind us cracked open. We both turned, and our father, Richard Holloway, was standing there. His jaw was clenched so tightly that I felt his teeth may break, and his face was taut with barely contained rage. He had unzipped his tuxedo jacket, as though he had jerked it open in exasperation. At his sides, his hands were clenched into fists. Stephanie, he murmured in a quiet, steady voice. Go inside. She tensed up. No. His gaze now shifted to mine. I moved forward, putting myself in their path. She stays. His voice remained even as his nostrils flared. I don't want to do this here. I sneered. Then I pointed to the ballroom and said, "Oh, now you care about appearances? Pretty sure that ship sailed when you called me a disgrace in front of 200 people." He clenched his jaw. "You humiliated me." I laughed without humor. I shook my head and said, "You embarrassed yourself, Dad. You could have just let me sit there in silence. But no, you had to drag me into it. You had to make me play along with your little fairy tale." His voice trailed off as he stepped closer. "You had no right to do what you did." Unflinching, I looked him in the eye. "And you had no right to do what you did." His gaze grew gloomy. "You don't understand." I abruptly interrupted him, saying, Don't you dare try to justify it. I was there, Dad. I saw what it did to her. I saw Mom waste away in that hospital bed while you were off with her." Beside me, Stephanie took a short breath, but she didn't say anything. Slowly, as though attempting to regain control, Richard let out his breath. "You don't know what my marriage with your mother was like." My blood became frigid. "Excuse me?" His face grew stern. "Alex, it wasn't flawless. He halted, shaking his head. "There were problems long before Veronica." I gaped at him in shock. I erupted in rage and said, "You don't get to do that? You don't get to rewrite history just to make yourself feel better. She loved you. She trusted you. And you repaid her by cheating on her while she was dying." His lips clenched. I was unhappy. In fact, I laughed. "You were unhappy?" I asked, reaching out. "Do you have any idea how much pain Mom was in? How she clung to the hope that maybe, you still loved her? And you were, what, bored?" Richard's expression grew gloomy. "Watch it." "No," I yelled. "You watch yourself. Because I am done letting you pretend you're some kind of victim here. You made a choice, Dad. You chose Veronica over Mom. Over us." Quiet. For the first time in my life, I noticed something that nearly looked like guilt on my father's face. However, it went by too soon. Instead, he smoothed a hand down his tuxedo and straightened. His voice was icy as he spoke again. "If you walk away from me now, you walk away for good," stated the man. "Is that what you want?" I gazed at him. It was this. He believed he could terrify me back into obedience at this point. He didn't comprehend though, because I had already lost my mother. I wasn't afraid of losing him at all. I squared my shoulders and looked him in the eyes with a certain assurance. "Yes, that's exactly what I want," I answered steadily. "If that's what it takes." Beside me, Stephanie quietly gasped, but she made no attempt to stop me. Richard's face remained unchanged. If anything, his face was hidden behind an unreadable mask as his jaw just tensed. "Then don't come crawling back when you regret it," he added. I shook my head and let out a breath. "I won't." After saying that, I turned and left. After a brief moment of hesitation, Stephanie followed. We never once turned around. With everything bearing down on us, Stephanie and I moved away from our father, the chilly air stinging my skin. Even though my breath was shallow and my legs felt heavy, I continued to walk. My dad didn't give us a call. He made no attempt to stop me. Excellent. I didn't think he would. Richard Holloway wasn't the type to go for anything that he gave up. Stephanie and I arrived at the hotel's side entrance, where some employees were smoking. They were too preoccupied with whatever drama was taking place inside the ballroom to even look at us as we passed. Stephanie wrapped her arms around herself and sniffed next to me. I said, "You okay?" in a softer tone. She shook her head and laughed dryly. "Am I okay, Alex? I don't even know what the hell just happened in there." She turned to face me and stopped walking. "Do you realize what you just did?" One hand swept through my hair. "Yeah, I do." She looked into my face. "And do you regret it?" I paused, for just a moment. The truthful answer was, no. Not even a little. Stephanie nodded, letting out a trembling breath. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Me neither." The noises of distant traffic filled the silence between us as we stood there. Then Stephanie laughed once more, a genuine laugh, a gasping and somewhat incredulous laugh. "Jesus Christ, Alex." The priest walked out. In spite of myself, I grinned. "Yeah, that was something." She continued to smile as she shook her head. Then her face became serious. "What do we do now?" I let out a breath and gazed up at the night sky over Chicago. "I don't know," I said. "But I know I'm not going back there." Stephanie looked toward the hotel entrance and bit her lip. The air was still filled with the sounds of music and muted voices. She said, "Should we just leave?" I looked at her. "Should we stay?" After giving it some thought, she nodded. "Fair point. The door behind us suddenly opened as we turned to go for the parking lot. Alex. We pivoted. Veronica was the one. As though she had nearly ran after us, her wedding dress, a gorgeous, form-fitting gown with intricate lace trimming, had hiked up at the bottom. Her face was contorted with anger, her makeup was flawless, and her blonde locks were now slightly frizzed. Stephanie groaned softly. Oh, for fuck's sake. With her heels clicking fiercely against the pavement, Veronica charged in our direction. She pushed a manicured finger into my chest as she stopped. Herzing. You ruined my wedding, I cocked my head. Did I? Or did you ruin your own life when you decided to screw a married man? Her eyes were blazing. You arrogant little... Careful, I said. Wouldn't want a guest to hear the blushing bride throwing a tantrum. She stomped her foot. Really? You think this is funny? You think humiliating us in front of everyone was some kind of win for you? I folded my arms. I think it was the truth. Something neither of you seemed to be familiar with. Her nose wrinkled. You selfish little crap. Beside me, Stephanie took a sharp inhale. Whoa. Veronica stepped forward. Your father gave you everything. He built a life for you. And this is how you repay him? I exhaled slowly and deliberately. You want to talk about repayment, Veronica? My mother spent 25 years loving a man who betrayed her while she was fighting for her life. And you? I motioned at her. You were part of it. You don't get to stand here in your stolen wedding dress and play the victim. She opened and shut her mouth, but nothing came out. Stephanie uttered a silent, damn. Veronica bounced back fast. Your father doesn't deserve this. He's been through enough. Something inside of me snapped. He's been through enough? I said in a harder, more irate tone. Do you hear yourself? My mother died, and you think he was the one who suffered? Veronica's expression contorted. Margaret. Don't say her name, I abruptly interrupted. She paused. I lowered my voice and stepped forward. You don't get to pretend you cared about her. You don't get to act like this wedding was some beautiful new beginning when we all know what it really is. Her jaw tightened as she swallowed forcefully. My voice was deadly calm as I said, you're just another chapter in a book of lies. She was speechless for the first time that evening. Claire folded her arms. Are we done here? A small line formed on Veronica's lips. Without saying another word, she pivoted on her heel and strode back in the direction of the hotel. Wow, mumbled Claire. That was dramatic. I breathed out slowly. Yeah, I'm exhausted. She gave me a look. Are you really okay? I paused. I don't know, I said. But I think I will be. She smirked after giving a slow nod. So, since we're already dressed up and out in the city, you want to go get some overpriced cocktails somewhere fancy and pretend we belong there? A tiny smile pulled at my mouth. That might be the best idea you've had all night. She put her arm around my own. Then let's get the hell out of here. After that, we left the ruins of my father's wedding behind and left the Fairmont Hotel. I felt free for the first time in a long time. As Stephanie and I strolled along the busy Chicago street, the bustle of the city surrounded us. I relished the bracing cold air since I needed any chance to get my mind clean. Stephanie put her arm through mine and asked, Are you really going to be okay? I breathed out slowly. I think so. You? She gave a shrug. Honestly, I thought I'd feel guilty. I thought I'd be panicking about how we just set Dad's life on fire. However, she trailed off before smiling. I feel amazing. I laughed with a sigh. Good. We finally arrived at a cocktail bar in River North, a classy lounge populated by individuals who appeared to have been featured on magazine covers. We really didn't belong there, but Claire persisted, and I reasoned that we should have something upscale after everything we had just been through. After ordering 2 extremely expensive drinks and slipping into a leather booth toward the rear, we let the night descend on us. Following some time, Claire stirred her martini and stated, You know he's going to come after us, right? I gave a nod. Yeah, but I don't care. She grinned. So what's next? I sipped my whiskey slowly. We finish what we started. And we accomplished precisely that. My father's wedding went viral by the following morning. When Stephanie and I woke up, our phones were exploding with missed calls, texts, and social media notifications. The controversy had taken off like wildfire. My toast was apparently videotaped by many of the visitors. The internet did what it does well once someone placed it online. The video was widely shared. Groom's son exposes the affair. Wedding, Chicago lawyer's big day turns into a public meltdown. Brutal wedding toast calls out father's infidelity, and we are here for it. When Stephanie saw the headlines, she almost choked on her coffee. Holy crap, Alex, we broke the internet. I read through one of the video's comments. Justice for Margaret. Imagine being called out like this on your wedding day. Couldn't be me. Low-key, the priest walking out was the most iconic part. You love to see karma working in real time. I couldn't contain my laughter. At last, my father's true self was revealed to the world. As she continued to browse, Claire wondered, do you think Dad has seen it yet? Just like clockwork, my phone rang. Holloway, Richard, I allowed it to ring. Claire's eyebrow went up. You're not going to answer? I sipped my coffee. Nope. Cold. She smiled. I like it. But I wasn't finished yet. My father's impeccable reputation began to deteriorate over the course of the next days. His legal practice, which took pride in its honesty, was not pleased with the controversy. Customers began to distance themselves from him because they didn't want to be connected to him. Then more rumors began to circulate. People started excavating. Veronica wasn't the only affair, it turns out. Others were present. Several. A few of them existed for years before to Mom's illness. There was nothing Stephanie and I needed to do. The task was done for us by the internet. My father resigned from his firm a week later. Veronica removed all of her social media accounts a week later. The icing on the cake was when Veronica abandoned him. The outrage and humiliation were too much for her to bear. She was committed to a life of luxury, wealth, and prestige. She didn't agree to be the woman in that wedding incident that went viral. Thus, she packed her bags and left his life just 2 months after their terrible wedding. Poetic fairness. Claire and I went to Mom's cemetery one afternoon. There, it was quiet. Keep quiet. The rows of headstones were bathed in a golden glow as the sun began to set. I brushed away some fallen leaves and set a bouquet of fresh lilies next to her headstone. Hey, Mom, I whispered. You won't believe what we did? Claire, who was kneeling next to me, laughed quietly. You would have loved it? As I gazed at her name etched in stone, I exhaled. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in a long time. As if we had at last provided her with the justice she was never able to receive while she was alive. I have no regrets at all. Richard Holloway made one attempt. A voicemail, half-hearted and pitiful. Alex, I know things got out of hand, but you're still my son, we should talk. I didn't listen to the others before deleting it. I moved on with Stephanie. What about my dad? He was living alone in a condo downtown when I last heard from him. His reputation has been destroyed. His career is deteriorating, and to be honest, I couldn't have imagined a more pleasurable form of retaliation. I was free for the first time in my life. And it was sufficient. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode.